Hi, my name is Dan Burrell. Thank you for being here with us today. The conversation you are about to hear is between myself and two friends that I've had for over 30 years. The first, Ken Leonard, was born in South Korea, an American serviceman for a father, South Korean woman as a mother. Ken was adopted at age 5 by an older Kansas City couple, where he grew up until he graduated high school and attended Lincoln College, while working his way through college at the state penitentiary. Ken eventually moved to California, where he resided for over 30 years. Leonard Turner was born in Arkansas, the youngest of 8, and grew up on a family farm of 120 acres, raising livestock and produce. Leonard left for California after high school, settling in the Bay Area and joining the Berkeley Police Department, where he served for 9 years. He eventually moved to Los Angeles and pursued an acting career, which became quite successful. During our conversation, we touched on a number of topics: police brutality, the protests, the pandemic, and the history of systemic racism entrenched in our country. Our conversation deeply affected my understanding of our society and the role we all must play in ensuring justice and equality for all. Thank you for taking the time to listen. So, hey, boys.
What's
All
up?
right.
What's up?
Thanks for
So
doing this. Actually, this is pretty important, this stuff right now. And for everything I'm doing with the Wheel of Purpose, this conversation can be a really good conversation for a lot of people. So we're just going to take a little time and kind of get into it. Kenny, let's start with you. The first question I have for you. Well, first, let me say anyway, for people that do this, we've all known each other for over 30 years, and so I feel that's a real benefit because we can have a really cool conversation because I trust you guys and I know you trust me, and we can talk about this, and this would be good. So, Ken, where were you born?
I was born in Seoul, Korea, actually. Yeah, I lived there until I was 5 years old. And then I was adopted and came to the States and grew up in Kansas City, Missouri.
You grew up in Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah.
Where did you go to high school?
Went to Lincoln High School. I grew up in a black neighborhood.
In Kansas City.
In Kansas City.
And was it a 100% black high school?
Yes, it was definitely. It was a 99.9%.
To say something that Leonard would say right now if we were together, he'd go, "You mean they didn't let white people in there?"
No, white people didn't want to go there. I was definitely in the hood. I lived in the hood, brother.
No kidding. That's awesome. I mean, that's part of why we're here right now. Tell us about what your parents were like.
My parents, like I said, I was adopted when I was 5 years old. My mother, she was working as a housekeeper. She was a domestic servant in Kansas City, and my father worked for one of the larger funeral homes. He was a driver for a funeral home, D.W. Newcomer.
No kidding.
Yes.
Man, he had some interesting stuff happen in his life, I'll bet. So what were they like? What kind of parents were they? And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
Actually, I was the only child. My parents, they were, for them, they were a little older. They didn't have children in their marriage, so they decided to adopt. And actually, one of my mother's best friend, who was the pastor of our church, they were like sisters, and she adopted two Korean orphans, and that gave my parents the impetus to adopt me. And basically, it was like a mail order adoption.
Mm.
Got a pamphlet, saw pictures, and said, "I want him," and it happened to be me. They were very loving loving, parents. That's one of the things that I felt from them was their love. So I didn't have any. I had a comfort level because of that. My dad he was very jovial. He liked to hang out with his buddies and have them over, and the neighbor couples around the neighborhood would come over and they'll play cards and just have a good time. My mother she was church going, and she was also just a very she would do everything. She liked to host, and talk to her friend. She couldn't drive, but she got around town everywhere because people would come pick her up. They just enjoyed her company, and they would would just go out and come by and pick us up. So yeah, my childhood, it was very joyful in the fact that I didn't know we were poor, because I was the only child, and I had everything that I needed.
Mm. So you felt you were a lower class or middle class as far as income standard?
I would say that we were lower. We weren't poor, because we weren't in poverty, but we had, my parents were living check to check, paycheck to pay, that type of living.
Okay, I'm going to go back to some questions for you. I'm going to introduce Leonard here. Mr. Turner?
Yes, sir.
Where were you born?
I was born in a little small city in Arkansas. It was called McCaskill, Arkansas. Population 62. Youngest of 8 kids. 62. However, they did not count the black people on the dirt road that was 2.5 miles from the little city that had one post office, one gas station, and one grocery store. But yeah, the posted population was 62. It's called McCaskill, Arkansas. 17 miles from what they call Clintonville now, but Hope, Arkansas, where Bill Clinton is from.
17 miles.
It was 17 miles from Hope.
Wow. What? Yes. How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I was the youngest of 8 kids.
Of 8 kids, and you were the youngest?
I was the youngest, yes.
And you lived on that dirt road you were talking about?
I lived on that dirt road. At the end of the road, the only thing that was deeper on that dirt road was actually the church. Because, when you grew up in the South, or, you're church going. So I went to church every Sunday. In fact, we had the key to the church. So we would have to be there first thing Sunday morning to open the church and have Sunday school, et cetera, et cetera.
So so tell us about your mom and dad.
Typical country folks. My dad actually worked before the war at what they call the proving ground. It had something to do with where they dropped bombs and did all sorts of things. In fact, they purchased the land from us for the government so that they could use that area as what they call a proving ground, and later sold it back to my dad. But after that, he was a farmer. I mean, we raised everything we ate. Again, I was listening to Kenny. We didn't have ghettos there. It was just farmland. Everyone owned, several acres. Like when I was growing up, my parents had 120 acres. They had 80 acres in one place where they just had timber on it, and the other place was 20 acres where we farmed and lived, and had pigs in the backyard and a garden in the backyard where we literally raised everything we ate. There were no white people living in our neighborhood. The schools were black. It was only about, well, first of all, the school was 1 through 12. There were 20 kids in my graduating class. The white school was next door to us, like 300 yards from the black school. It was called Blevins Training School.
It was segregated.
Yeah. Oh, definitely segregated.
After segregation ended.
No, I graduated in 1966. So forced integration wasn't until, I guess, 67.
That was actually, it passed in 1960, yeah, 65. So,
It didn't,
Jim Crow. Well, the Jim Crow.
it didn't make it to us until 67. Because in 66, what they did is they made it voluntary. If you wanted to go to the white school, you could, or anyone from the white school could come to the black school.
I'm sure
And
that happened constantly.
say it again.
I'm sure that happened constantly. I'm kidding.
No, only one kid went well, they wouldn't let the seniors go. I was a senior that year that they made it voluntary, but they would not let the seniors go, I'm assuming because of, their grades and, being valedictorian, they didn't want that taken away or whatever. But my niece actually went. And then the next year they forced them to integrate the schools. So they made they made our school, the black school, the elementary school, and made the white school the high school.
So
we took a bus. We were 6 miles. We went to school in Blevins. I lived in McCaskill, but they had several communities, like 5 or 6 small communities like McCaskill, and we all would meet in Blevins to go to school. The school bus that took you to school.
So were you middle class? Where were you? Lower class, middle class? What was your status in the, you have your own area and then you have the larger area. Did it matter or?
Well, I mean, we had 120 acres, so I don't know guess that didn't make us poor, even though we didn't have a lot of money. But we didn't know anything about middle class and upper class and lower class. We were just farmers, that raised what you ate. We went to school. I didn't, I worked during the summers. I didn't have to miss school to work or anything like that. But there were no gangs it was even a dry county. So I never drank a beer until I moved to California after I was 18. I left the day I graduated high school, because everyone came home for my graduation. I always knew that I was going to end up in the Bay Area. And as we graduated, we moved to the Bay Area, from the first one that left until the last one.
Okay, so my question, can you answer this first? So from when you were born, of course, and what you remember, and then working with your parents and everything like that. So until the end of high school, did you witness any form of racism whatsoever, being in a black high school, in your community? Did it even exist for you?
Well, racism exists within races itself. In black culture, there is racism among light-skinned blacks, dark-skinned blacks. There is that. The first time I remember, I guess racism is when, like I said, my mother, she was a housekeeper. She worked for some wealthy families, and I remember one of the times, and I probably was about, I want to say about 7, somewhere around there, 7 years old, and going over, for some reason, I had to go with my mom that day, and it was the look and where I didn't have, I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel comfortable with the people that the people that she was working for, because they just, because I grew up in a neighborhood where everybody was friendly and just, hey, Kenny, have this, you can do whatever you want to do over there. But I just remember I had to stay in one particular area, didn't want me to leave out of that area or going anywhere. And it just like eyes were always on me, like I was, doing something that I shouldn't be doing, but I wasn't doing anything, Right. And I felt uncomfortable early on. But then as in the neighborhood, like I said, there's racism. I even remember because, I had not, round eyes. My eyes were, a little Asian shaped, and they were, kids would make fun of me and things of that nature. And one thing about it, See, I couldn't speak English when I came to the States. When I was 5 years old and started kindergarten, I just only had a few words of English. And so I got teased on that. And then maybe that's more teasing than racism itself. But those type of things, occurred.
Yeah, that's I mean, and you remember that from 7 years old, and it's a feeling of being uncomfortable, and
Yes.
that goes around. Leonard, how about you? Tell me your first experience of racism.
Well, we had very little connection with white people because we didn't go to school with them. My parents worked for them. My dad did, actually. And I did things like picking cotton and picking peas and things like that during the summer and hauling hay, but never an incident whatsoever with any of the people that we had to end up working for. The only thing I remember is when Emmett Till was killed, which obviously we all know about that. And I remember I remember feeling that when I was in the company of a white girl, to try to make sure that I didn't, and this is weird because I hadn't thought about this since then, that I didn't give the impression that I was winking at her or anything of that sort. But the thing was, we were never around any white girls. But it was in my head, because that was such a big deal to know that, do not act as if you're flirting with or anything to do if you're around a white girl or you also get killed. And I remember that from, I guess, I don't know what year that was, but I think I was around 13, 14. Emmett Till must have been killed somewhere around 64, I guess it was.
No, 1955.
What year was it?
1955.
55?
Yes.
Oh, damn. I was younger than I thought when that was going through my head then.
Right.
Maybe it became a bigger deal later or something, because that would have made me around 9, 10 years old. But I do remember it. I remember when he got killed, and I remember having that fear of not showing any signs that you were interested in a white girl that was there. But as far as actually having any bad experience with white people, it was never. In fact, I remember one time my mom and I were picking peas at I remember this guy's name. His name was Dode Askew, and I remember my mom being surprised that when we got ready to eat, because it was just the two of us and this guy's wife working that day picking these peas, and she had us come into her kitchen and eat lunch. And I remember my mom being shocked that she invited us in to eat in their house. But never an incident of racism there in Arkansas. But because of the lack of contact, I'm sure it could have been worse, but
right.
No association.
But yes, and we could talk about that more,
Yeah.
but it seemed like everything was kept in a certain place that everybody was comfortable.
You knew your place, basically.
Right. And also what I really like about what both of you said, it sounds really amazing about your parents, is that no matter where you were, you felt this was normal life and you were living a normal life, and it was great. It was great.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to switch gears here. One of the things that I want anybody that's watching us to know is Leonard, you were a former police officer, right? At the Oakland Police Department?
Berkeley.
And for how many years were you a police officer?
Right at 9 years.
Okay, so I just want that to be there. Kenny, didn't you work in a women's prison?
The men's prison in Missouri. Yes. Yeah, the men's state penitentiary in Jefferson City, Missouri. That's where I went to college at Lincoln University in Jefferson City.
Okay,
so
that's great. Great experience there. All right, I'm going to fast forward here, and I'm going to throw a question at you. We're going to start talking. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the present day right now. I mean, there's a lot going on, and we are finding, I am finding that, okay, what do I tell? What do I learn? What do I also talk to with my Caucasian friends? Because people talk about it, and there's a certain perspective of, I've been thinking hard on this, Black Lives Matter, because the first thing some of these people say whether they're truly racist or not, is, well, white lives matter too. And my answer right now is that I've come up with is that, yeah, but your lives have always mattered.
Yeah.
And black lives have not always mattered. So let's just start there. So there's a difference already. We're white. You begin this sort of kind of privileged thing, you know. So let's talk about this. How, from you guys with, you know, your life experiences, and you've met a lot of people and been around all kinds of people and a hell of a lot of white people. Where do we start in this world to start to make a difference?
Well, I'll start on this one, Kenny, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
First of all, when a black person is around a white person, and the subject of black, when a black person is around someone white, and you say, you know, the word Black Lives Matter come up, and they go, all lives matter. First of all, 9 out of 10 times they're either very stupid or they're racist, because everyone knows that white lives have always mattered, and black lives definitely matter also, which is what the point is. But it doesn't need to be said that white lives matter. I mean, that's pretty stupid, and it comes along with the same with the flag. But I'm sure we'll get to that later. But when I hear that, I hear someone that definitely needs talking to. And oh my God, where was I going with that?
So who does the
yeah.
talking to them? Who does the, like? How did people learn to change, and how did they get the message? You know, my own experience is I've had relationships with black men for ever since I left high school and went into the service. I became, you know, it was for me, it was no different. It was another person. By God, you know, I'm sure racism exists in the service, but I wasn't going to feel any different because this guy might have my back someday. You know what I mean? It's just
right.
the same as I.
Well,
my first was from Harlem.
Yeah, but it's not enough. It's not enough. And I love the fact that they're saying this. It's not enough nowadays to just not be racist. You have to literally be anti-racist. And I'm sure you've heard them using this term. It's this momentum that's going on right now it feels very different. I'm 72 years old, and I've seen a lot of protesting and etc. This one seems a bit different. Boy, there's so much to cover on this, and you know, I don't know how you want to scale it out and ask the questions, but this one is different. And then you can talk with Kenny and ask whatever question you want to ask.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think Well, first of all, Dan, I want to say, and Leonard, thanks for having this conversation, because this is something that have been just not been brought up to conversation and talk about. People hide from having these type of conversations. When the term Black Lives Matter, when I remember first hearing about it, the group, and I was going like, yeah, they're trying to let people know, because blacks have been in slavery. Even when this slavery was over after the Civil War, it still took another 100 years. We were in Jim Crow laws. You know, the segregation took over, and they were able to discriminate, and it has continued. You know, you got to remember, the voting act didn't really come into prominence until like 1964 or something like that.
64, yeah.
Yeah, it was the mid '60s that came about. But then, you know, so what I remember just it meaning to me that, hey, look at us, we're human beings. There's humanity here, and blacks have not in general been treated like human beings, because there's been lynchings, there's been massacres, man. There's been communities, towns that have been totally, where they ran all the blacks out and burnt the whole town, you know, and it's always been kind of like shoved under the carpet, you know. No one, you know, after it happened, no one really came out and talked about it and really,
right,
you know, identified what's really the problem. And the real problem is that America is a racist country. it was born. It came out of, white people coming here, and first the Indians, they got rid of all the Indians, took over the land. Even the Mexicans, they put, that were here in the territory, they shoved them out of here, and they took over. And so when I would do, Leonard, when white people say, hey, white lives matter, all lives matter, blue lives matter, baseball matters, whatever, they're not willing to talk about what's really the issue. And that issue is that blacks have been treated as a second-class citizen throughout the history of this country, of our government. And that's what we need to address. And hopefully what's happening now, and to be honest with you, because I think what's helping this bring it to the forefront is this pandemic. Because
Absolutely.
Because people have been sitting around for months with nothing to do, and then all of a sudden they actually saw a lynching when that police officer put his knee on the neck of George Floyd. He did it. What was the surprising thing for me was how casual.
With his hand in his pocket.
With his hand in his pocket, like
Yeah.
he's out for he's sitting on the porch drinking his a sweet lemonade or something, man. It was so casual.
Yes.
And for 8 minutes 46 seconds, his expression didn't change, his demeanor didn't change. God didn't say a word, but he knew what he was doing, and I think that struck a chord, because there's been other videotapes of people
a KKK ceremony where they actually hung someone right there in their suits standing around. You know what I mean? It was like literally just like, and it was live for us all.
Yep.
Absolutely, it was.
So
it was
let's shift there for a quick second, because here's what I think. I think that there's a percentage of the police department, there's a percentage of the country, take all the Caucasians in the country, that are racist. Okay, let's not put a number on it, but there's a percentage. My guess, it would be there's a percentage of police officers that either go right around that number or a little bit higher, probably because of the type of person that police tend to attract, right?
Right.
I'm going to go beat them up, be a cowboy, and that sort of thing. So with that being said, the answer lies in all of society, not just the police department, right? There's a lot more out there to tackle.
Yes.
You're just a representative of it.
Right.
But we saw that on camera go back for the last 100 years with policemen and constables, and what happened that wasn't on camera, or never be on camera, or in the Deep South, or in whatever, all those things. So like, this has been going on for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the racists and the injustices in society itself has been, the police they've been used to implement it. They've been used to enforce it. One of the biggest problems with the police is not just the percentage that are racist. It's the fact that the blue law, the cover that they cover up for each other, that which is what really it's going to take in order to help on the police side, is that they want the gang members to tell on each other. They want the foreigners to tell on each other that may blow up something, but the cops won't tell on each other, period. So until that changes, nothing will change. But like, the cops is just they're a fraction of what this current movement is all about. And if people want to be racist in their homes, that's fine, as long as the policies are not racist, as long as the cops are not racist, and the judges are not racist, and the teachers and etc. But all these people in these positions are human beings, and human beings have the racism is there. So this is, like Kenny was saying, this has been going on for so long. It's crazy. One of the things I forgot to mention about being in Arkansas is that I do remember not being particularly happy about when you could not go inside of a restaurant. There was a place, a hamburger place we used to go to. It's called Pete House. We had to go to the walk-up window. We could not go inside the restaurant, and we obviously could not go into the movie theaters and things like that. And another big thing that was a problem going back and forth, because we used to drive to Arkansas every year after, they did it, and then once I was an adult, we all did it. You couldn't stop at a hotel. We couldn't stop and sleep at a hotel. So it's just even the little minor things like, somebody white like you wouldn't you, it just, how, you probably can't even wrap your brain about it, around it, being the white person that you actually are, which is really weird because I've always told you that for some reason I never saw you as being white, which is kind of weird. It'd be nice if every white person I know I would feel that way about, but and one last thing while I'm here, and I'm gonna let you move on. I was playing golf yesterday with these two Republican guys actually, and we had some interesting conversations. And the thing came up about the flag. One of them is really more of a redneck than the other one, and he was asking me what I thought about the flag. I said, "Well, you show me a Confederate flag, and I'll show you a racist." And he said, "Well, what percentage do you think?" I said, "Probably 98%." And, and then we joked about it. He said, "Would you give me maybe 97?" Because he probably had a flag. But it was a very interesting conversation when we talked about that.
Was he from the South?
No. He was from Southern California here.
I mean, seriously, I don't see any reason. I mean, I don't see how he could not call himself a racist, because to me, from New Jersey and New York, that Confederate flag represents the South efforts to keep slavery, fight for slavery, give their lives for slavery.
Oh, well, yeah.
Right. That's what it was about.
Somebody said this to me. They said, well, slavery and racism aren't necessarily the same.
Are you serious? Someone said that to you?
Somebody said that to me. And I said, wait, what? Really? But listen. And I don't want to say all due respect, because it's hard to respect anybody that can say that. But this is what you get from people that don't have experiences personally with people of color. They come from predominantly white areas. If I stayed in my town in New Jersey, where I grew up, there was only, one black guy. That was it. He played football. He was a split end. He was faster than anybody else. And they called him fake. That was my experience of a black person until I left high school and went in the service. So there's a lot of people in this country that grew up in predominantly white areas, and they don't have experience with black people, and they might have gone to a certain university, and whatever it was, but it's for someone to say something like that. I mean, explain that to someone. How is slavery and racism not the same?
Right. Well, see, that's the thing. This is systemic racism. It's been institutionalized. It's structured. It's been built in our laws, politically. It's been existing for all these hundreds of years, and even the woman that was in New York, that had the dog in Central Park, and she was a liberal, and she played her race card by calling the police and said, "There's an African American man here, and he's threatening me. He's threatening me." And and see, we were talking about white privilege. It exists, but the thing about it, I think that we are now this whole George Floyd thing. It opened up people's eyes and given us a platform that's now where we're talking about it and really getting into a discussion of what racism really is and what does it mean to you, and the experiences. The people are starting to listen and to Black people and their experiences of racism, and you kind of go like, wow, we've seen it, but now we're having some empathy for it now. And I think that what's also fueling this is the younger generation, because they're now living through it. You know, here they're 20 something, and here they've seen a man killed right in the middle of the street in front of their eyes, and they've heard about it, might have seen it on video or whatever before, but now it happened, and they realize, hey, we can't live like this. You know,
what it was to me, Kenny, it was literally like a message that was undeniable.
Oh gosh.
Yes. It's nobody can deny that wasn't murder and that wasn't racist, right? I mean, that period. So now we all got woken up a little bit. But so as you were talking, here's another question for you. Because these are the comments that I hear. Well, look at how many people in jail are black. Look at how many crimes are committed by black people. Look at how many guys said the other day, tell me about Chicago, all these people in Chicago that black killing blacks.
Right,
so I don't get it. What do I tell that guy? What does that guy need to hear? Well, because to me, as both of you know, one of my friends produced a documentary after the Rodney King riots called "The Fire This Time." You probably saw it back then, Kenny, and it was the same thing boiling up again over 25 years. You keep African Americans and people of color in a certain place, and eventually it explodes because they got to get out, and they get out, and then it calmed down again. And 25 years again, it happened later. This is different now. This what we saw is different now. It's got legs. There's a lot of people involved, but so how do we change their thinking? Because one, they don't know what it's like to live in an oppressed area. They have no clue to live in a place where the unemployment may be 60%, to have no markets, to have no, infrastructure that the rest of us get. But there's people that want to say, well, wait, there's a lot of problems with the black community and crime.
Right. Well, you're right. There are those that would say, hey, because blacks makes 13%. We're 13% of the population here in the United States.
13%. Right.
13%. But we're almost, in certain areas, 34 to 50% of the ones that are incarcerated. And a lot of that is to do with the systemic racism in the judicial area, man. Usually, if a white man and a black man get arrested for the same crime, there's more likelihood that the black man is going to get sentenced, and if the white man gets a sentence too, the black man's going to get a longer sentence than the white criminal. And it's just because of how the system has just perpetuated over time. It's just been perpetuating, and the judges, the DA, and this is, like I said, now I think the dialogue is coming out that, hey, yes, there's crime in all of our communities. Now, but we have to now address why it's proportionally worse in the black communities than in whites, and why are they getting more sentences? Why are they getting busted for? Police are targeting them more. It's a dialogue that needs to happen, and we need to start making changes because power is people, and we need to get the right people in these power positions that's making the laws, that's following out the letter of the law.
Yeah,
and that's that's how, that's what I tell them. We tell people that they're saying, oh yeah, because I've heard the same thing, Dan. Chicago, yeah. Well, just last week or just a few days ago, there was 103 murders.
Yeah. If they're asking you that question, I'm sorry for cutting you off. If they ask that question about Chicago, it just means that they don't want to hear what's actually going on. So I know what they're saying. Well, all these black people are getting killed. Why is there a problem with just these few getting killed by cops? That's what they're asking you, right, Dan?
Pretty much, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
not that way, but you see the numbers from Chicago.
Yeah.
I don't know if I sent you the police captain commander in Minnesota, and they were giving this guy a hard time for getting on his cell phone during a conference.
Right.
Did I send you that piece? Did you see that piece?
I don't think so, no.
Well, he came back and he was incredibly powerful from his perspective. And why he was on his phone is because a little African-American girl, 5 years old, was just shot in the community by a drive-by gangbangs kind of thing.
Right.
That was the reason. But she had been shot and she was no longer alive. And he was dealing with his officers on that, and he was had to go to this scene. That's why he was on his phone. So it really pissed him off. And he was like, you know what? He goes, we have too many African Americans dying in our community. I am out there. My team is out there every day. Do we have bad cops? Yes. I'll send you this video. It's incredibly powerful because that's the argument on the other side is that, which is simple because it's a geometry equation is O, oppress a society, plus B, for many, many years, C, continue to keep them down, and E, they'll just perpetuate this continuous cycle of where they're at because no one's letting anybody out.
Yes.
Right.
But you can't explain it to them. You can't legislate hatred, and what you have to do is vote them out. Like I said, people can be as racist as they want as long as they're not as long as they're not a mayor, judge, cop, et cetera, that are in power of other people. The bottom line, you're just gonna have to vote them out. I often wondered, and I even asked you, how do you deal with the people that, white friends that you have that are Republicans that are saying these things? And what do they say to you that they wouldn't dare say around us, me and Kenny?
Well, this is why we're here, though, because people don't hear this. They hear the leaders on TV and what they say, and we're going to do this and we're going to do this. Well, we already know that these leaders promise everything under the sun and very little gets accomplished.
Right.
And that's why we've come back to this place over and over again. Like we really haven't made any headway. We're just more advanced at it.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're just more advanced. So the solution is not necessarily going to be from the top. The solution is coming from
absolutely
down below. And there's an awful lot of other people that are supporting the movement right now. There's an awful lot of Caucasians at these protests that are standing right there, thank God. And because they get it. They're younger and they get it. They haven't spent 50 years believing a certain way about people of color. They are younger and they're more apt to change and more apt to be open. And they saw that George Floyd thing and they knew it's whoa. This has got to stop.
Yeah. And it was a perfect scenario of everyone. In the past on a lot of these cop shootings, it was bam, bam, should he have shot? Maybe he shouldn't have. Was he in fear of his life? But when everyone's sitting home because they can't go out and they see this guy's knee on his neck for almost 9 minutes, then it's not like a judgment call. Like, oh my God, maybe I would have shot then because, I've lived through a lot of these situations and heard about all of them and, when I was on the police department, et cetera. But there was just no question on this one. This was just slow, methodical murder. Not, I thought he was going to shoot me, or I didn't know that wasn't a gun in his hand. This was, okay, I'm going to casually sit here with my knee on your neck, and I am going to freaking kill you as you're asking for your mother. And it just really touched people a lot different this time. It's not going to, it's the people that are asking, well, what about all the murders in Chicago? It's not going to affect them one way or the other because they know how this situation got to where it was. They know that rock cocaine brought you 10 years, whereas powder cocaine, you got a year. They know that your son, Dan, if he was to get stopped by the cops with marijuana on him, that they would call you, whereas my kid would get stopped, his ass would be in jail. I mean, it's just that simple. But you can't change. If someone's a racist, they're going to stay a racist. Just make sure that they're not in a position of power in any way. And now we have the president that's obviously the biggest racist is out there, and look where he is. But hopefully that's will be handled in 3 or 4 months.
You think the president's a racist?
You do? I think he is. Was that your question?
Yeah.
The bear shit in the woods?
Yeah.
Come on.
Okay, so here's my next question is, and this actually came up today with somebody, is that if you right now in society, you both have obviously been in situations where you could feel that there was maybe an individual had racist undertones, maybe some sort of a group or something like that. So actions by people create their truth, right?
Yes.
I change my actions, I create a new truth, whatever direction I want to go in. So there are people that don't recognize that they are racist. I'm not racist. I don't, no way, no, not me. No, I love everybody. I'm great. But really, what is the core definition? In other words, what's the difference between a racist when he looks at a black person and a non-racist when they look at a black person?
Go ahead, Kenny.
Well, I think that what differentiates racism in a person, and you were just saying it, Dan, it's your actions. How you treat someone. You can say, hey, this is, hey, well, I have friends that are black, but then, they go out and you see, they're in the car by themselves, and someone pulls out in front of them and it's like, oh, that black motherfucker, also, but probably come out with the N-word there, and I think that it's the actions that you have in you shows you, if you're a racist or not. It was just like this, Kimmel, they got on Jimmy Kimmel about, I guess, I'm not sure when he did this. This is a few years back. He did a spot in the mid '90s when Snoop Dogg came out, and so Jimmy Kimmel did one of his rap songs, and of course he has the N-word in it, and Jimmy Kimmel, he actually
did that.
Jimmy Kimmel, Kimmel, and Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah, they had the N-word, and he was using the black comedian George Wallace's type of his voice. He was just kind of singing like if he was George Wallace, this other this black comedian, and he was singing Snoop Dogg's a song, but like I said, this guy, he's saying that he's not a racist, of course, because he got black friends. He's got, he's in Hollywood and everything. He works with black, but that action right there touches on racism. If you're not racist, you'd be you'll be sensitive to that, and you wouldn't, because that is not, you don't cross that line. And that's out of respect. And that's where, you're not being a racist or being a racist, that you respect other people and you would not cross that line,
I have a thought, Kenny. I have a thought right now. It's this thought is that in working towards all of us being non-racist, it's like, we start with our thoughts. Our next step is our actions. If we keep our thoughts and actions distinguishing between people because of their race, that's like a giant step moving forward, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes.
In other words, I'm going to work on me and my thoughts. And if I have a thought that comes up that immediately would fall into the racist category, I can change that thought. I can say, no, hold it. everybody here, you know, we're actually all one race. We're the human race.
Yes.
Even get the freaking far right people that don't consider it, you know, whatever. We're the human race. And, you know, Hitler was a guy that considered the human race was the Aryan, the white race. No, we're a human race. So we're really all the same race. But it's the thought, if I was teaching a child, I would say, listen, think, everybody's the same. Just because they're different colors or from different places, we're all the same. And then your actions should be the same action you would take to someone regardless of whatever race they are, right?
Absolutely.
Agree?
Absolutely. You know, you're right. You're right, because you can have that thought of, hey, you know, from anger or whatever, you know, that raises that thought, but you know not to say that. You know, that's not right. You know, so now you put that the thought of not attacking or not treating someone that in, you know, with humility, you know, and now you use that action to reinforce that thought, as opposed to, you know, going, you know, just going up, bouncing from one place to another, you know.
If you feel that I'm sorry, if you feel like your skin color makes you superior to someone, that's a clear sign of racism. And as far as, you know, where we are now and moving forward, it's not always about how something is meant. You have to run it through your computer. It's how is it going to be received, as far as just day-to-day actions. But it's insecurity. It's everyone needs to feel like they're better than someone else. And with the way things have played out in the, you know, with the slavery and et cetera, and being a third of a person and et cetera, you know, it's already built in that you are superior. I mean, there was some comedian, Chris Rock was saying that some toothless, broke white guy can still say, yeah, but I'm white. They wouldn't want to trade with him. I mean, you know, that's when, that just kind of lets you know where this thing is right now. You know, it's been such a long road of fear and cops arresting. Well, we know why there's more people in jail. You know, because there's so much to cover, and I know we only have a certain length of time. But
to finish that thought, though, we have a little time. Tell me why. Answer your own question right there, or your own statement. Why there's more black people in jail than anybody else?
Oh, because cops. I remember cops in Oakland and Richmond. What they call good police work was seeing a black person and stopping them so that they can either find some weed on them or a gun in their car, or hoping that they had a warrant. Did you read what I sent you about the cop that was the bad cop that wrote about everything they used to do? Didn't I send you that?
Absolutely.
Dan? Yeah. Where they would write bad tickets or tickets to people that they knew couldn't pay them, so that they can then, the next time they see them, there's a warrant on them. I mean, it's just, that's the whole thing. They call that good police work. If you stop every black person you can find on the street and hope that he has a gun in his car, or before weed in his car, or a warrant. So they call that good police work. Huh?
You're a police officer. Did that happen as you were a police officer?
Did not. No, not in Berkeley. I mean, we had one guy that I remember used to go by the nightclubs and bounce people's cars to see if a gun would come from under the seat in front of a black nightclub. We used to just kind of laugh at him because he was kind of a nutty idiot. But Berkeley was totally different. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but Berkeley wouldn't hire you unless you had at least a BA degree. And that makes a big difference in who you're hiring. The problem with the police department is the hiring process. It's not the training. You don't have to train someone not to put your hand in your pocket and put your knee on their neck until they're dead. That's not a training issue. That's a human issue. That's an issue of who you are hiring. But Berkeley was totally different. I mean, there was no. Oakland was very different. Oakland is where I was getting my examples of what they call good police work. But no, Berkeley was totally different. Totally. And the only thing I can, attribute that to is the fact that, you're not a lot smarter because you went to college, but you've been through things. You've been around other people. you had something that you had to stick with to, you know, to make it work type thing, rather than just my uncle was a cop, so I want to be a cop, and my dad was a cop. But no, Berkeley was totally different. I wish I could give you some examples of something stupid that happened in Berkeley, but I can't think of a single thing other than the one guy that used to go by the black nightclubs, and told me he used to bounce people's cars to see if a gun would roll from under the seat.
Right.
But,
Okay, so we're going to do two things next. One is, what's your solution, the big picture and the small picture, to our issues of racism in America today?
I'll go. You know, I think that what's going to come out of this time and the conversations that's going on now is that what we need to do is vote. Like I said, power is in people, and now I think this was coming out that we need to not just look at it at the national level. We need to fight it at the local level. We need to now affect the offices. Like Leonard was saying, we need to get these people out of here. That's in power, and that's at the DAs, the judges, you know, the mayors, the representatives, the ones that making the laws and policies that we live by. You know, just like when 2010, when actually the Democrats, well, you know, 2008, Obama got in there and became president, but then in 10, people didn't go out and vote and ended up losing the House of Representatives. It was a Democratic House when majority when Obama came in, but in 10 it changed, and that stalled a lot of his movement, his making policy changes. And I think now that I think we know we have to make those get the right leaders in position to make the right progressive choices that we need for our kids and their kids, and you know, and for us, you know, too. That's what I see as the big change, because we do need police reform, but we need political reform too. You know, we need to get the right people in there that's going to make the progressive choices and not have the old establishment that's been running. You know, we have these lifetime politicians that's been in, especially in the southern states, that have been in there for 30 years, man. You know, they got a 4-year term, and they've been reelected 6-7 times or more in some cases.
Yeah.
You know, so that's where I think is the power is getting the right people into office, and that's going, and so in the local level, and then that will reach up to the national level, so that we make changes that's going to last for years instead of that one time. You know, we have to make voting.
So a lot
to
of what
me,
you were saying before, Leonard, right? I mean,
yes,
yes,
absolutely.
I think that we really have to be motivated in this election. If we're going to make some changes to this, we have to change the leadership at the top too.
Oh, absolutely. No, we definitely got to do that. But then, you know, all the states, you know, sovereign, they, you know, we have to put in the right people at the local level, so that when we, like you said, we'll get the right president in there that's going to make a difference. That's going to unite us, because that's what we need. And right now we have a president that is dividing the country, not uniting the country. And we need to be
becoming a partisan thing with the protests and everything like that. It's a very partisan thing right now.
Yes.
So here's Leonard. This is a question that I have for you. Imagining you are walking on stage and you are talking to 1,000 Caucasians that are sitting in the theater, and you've been an actor, so you're probably pretty good at this. So these 1,000 Caucasians some are struggling with racism, some have had it in their past, some don't understand it. What do you say to them when you step up to the microphone and have a conversation with them, and what they should do moving forward to become better people, better human beings, better understand, what do they do? You're speaking to them now.
Interesting question. Before I answer that, there's one thing that, first of all, you guys know nothing's going to change that drastically, because the people are in the streets right now, right? What I'm hoping that part of what happens with this is that in the long term, you've got to start with the young kids. I'm hoping that part of what comes out of this is that a lot of people do what LeBron James did. There's so many rich people out there that could do exactly what he did, and even on a larger level, is start educating kids and feeding them as kids, as elementary kids. That's where the huge change is going to come. As far as talking to a room full of white people that, I don't know whether these are good intentioned white people or just white people that are just...
No, let's say good intentioned white people. Some of them have come from interesting backgrounds. Hey, there are good people that have changed even though they came from an extremely racist background. That's good they're there. Of course they're there. But this room full of people is looking for an understanding from you, and you get a chance to talk to them directly about how to move forward. What would you say?
I'd want to know if there's anyone in the audience that felt that anyone was inferior to them, whether they actually understand why Black people in Chicago and Detroit, first of all, do they even know why they're there, why their parents actually went there? The reason most gays are in San Francisco or LA or New York is the same reason why Black people are in Detroit and Chicago and Kansas City. It's because they could not stay in Alabama and Arkansas because they were afraid to be killed. So I know that's off the issue. I'd have to really put some thought into it, what I would say to this room full of people other than just what do you think makes white people superior to any other nationality, or if they think so? Or maybe I would just stand up there and say Black Lives Matter and ask if anyone has anyone wants to stand up and say all lives matter, so that I would know where to get started.
Vice President did this the other day. You know where to get started. Vice President did this the other day. They asked him 5 times to say Black Lives Matter. He couldn't say it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, he would have said it had he not been working for Trump. He probably would have said it. But, Trump has these guys are so afraid of Trump that, none of them are actually being themselves. I mean, history is going to really not be good from McConnell on down. But no, he couldn't obviously say, he couldn't say that. Do you ever say anything like this to the guys that you golf with? Do you ever actually ask them why they feel the way they do about certain things, or whether they feel?
Absolutely. We have some pretty good conversations about it. I've talked about, my relationship with you guys, and have said, if you haven't had a relationship like that, if you haven't had a friend, you're probably not going to understand. You're going to be watching TV and getting the perspective out there. But here's another thing too. What is it? The third commandment or something? No, I'm sorry, third commandment, but it's in the commandments too. But in the Constitution, all men are created equal.
Right.
Yeah, but then the guys writing that also were saying that we were 1/3 of a person. So,
that's true.
Thing is,
of course, in any Bible, it's going to tell you that we're all the same. But
education and voting is what's going to change things. You can't really change a racist from being a racist. You just have to make sure he's not in a position where he can affect anything. There is literally something different between a Republican's and a Democrat's brain. I've read it about the study in Europe, but I firmly believe that, because there's people with racist parents, once they get out, go to college. This is why a lot of if you watch Fox at all or listen to any of these right-wing talk shows, of which I do, they don't want their kids going to college, even though they went to college. They think they go there and they get liberalized and et cetera, et cetera. So that's how they see this. So what goes in is what comes out. But a lot of these kids, they'll grow up and they go away to college, and all of a sudden they don't have the same, the racist thoughts and the privilege that the parents tried to teach them. So it's going to be education and voting. Period.
That's great. Kenny, you're walking into a room of 1,000 people. You get a chance to stand up in the microphone. You got a minute to tell them how to move forward from your perspective. What do you do? What do you say?
I think that I would appeal to.
Oh, thanks. Stay it. You're up to the microphone right now. Look at these 1,000 people and tell them what you're thinking.
I'm looking out here and I see all these faces, and it's all white people, right, Dan? all you white faces out here. What I want you to think about is that instead of black, there's a black race, there's a white race, there's a brown race, there's all these different races, but in reality, there's only one race, and that is the human race, because we all will bleed the same type of blood. It's red. So we all are one in that one race, and think about that. That's it. That's it, man. Let's live and build our humanity. That's what it is. It's who that person, it's the character of that person that makes that person a good person or not.
Yeah. Someone was saying today, they're either good or they're bad people.
Yes, that's it. That's it. That's all.
Is that true?
That's so true. That is so true.
I believe
there's no gray area. You're either good or you're bad.
Yes.
Right.
And the question is racism good? Well, if you're a good person, you would say no. And if you're a bad person, you say, who gives a crap?
Right.
One last thing, then, it's kind of like human nature. If you own everything and you're the big dog, you don't want to give up any of your power. That's part of it. If you own everything and you own, that's why they didn't want to give up the slaves. I mean, who wants to give up free labor? And then once you have the big end of the stick, you don't want to share it. So a lot of it's just plain selfishness. And it's easy to group all black people or all Mexicans or all Russians in one group, because then you can paint them very easily with the same brush. So part of it is just convenience on white people's part. Hey, I got it. I ain't giving up nothing. Period. That's the selfish end of it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I truly appreciate your time. I think that it's been absolutely perfect, and I really appreciate your honesty. And I hope that as my brand grows, that I'm going to continue and try to help educate people through this process of being able to talk this over. And I hope a lot of people do that. But from my heart, thanks to you guys for being here and having this conversation, because I'm certainly learning more, and I want to learn more to educate the people that I know, which a lot of people are good people. Well, there you go, the good and bad thing again, right? But the way I try to look at it for myself is I'm always leaning, as I was taught, to treat other people as I would want to be treated myself. So when I see a guy sitting on the street and he's got a cup out and he's an African American, he says veteran or whatever he is, I just, how do I want to be treated? And even if I didn't have money in my pocket or change or whatever, at least I could say, afternoon, sir, how you doing? You all right? Or whatever, just because that's what people would do they'd want to happen to them. Not to say that I'm perfect and I don't have work, because I do. It's constantly have work, and this is part of it. But we got to get on this. We got to start this now if we want to be here in 20 years.
Yep. Can you imagine what kind of world we would have if everyone just did that one simple little thing? Just treat everybody the way they want to be treated. Because we know what fair is. We all know what fair is.
Right.
We just don't want to do it. It is so simple to just do the right thing. Just be fair. Not overly fair, not less than fair. Just treat everybody the way you want to be treated.
And that
would heal all ills. Everything. That would heal everything.
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing, Dan, I really appreciate you connecting with us and having the conversation, listening. The thing now we have to do is continue the conversation. Yeah. Don't let it stop. This has to be part of our lives now, to keep communicating, keep talking, because that's how we're going to build it. Leonard was saying it's not going to happen overnight. No. This country was actually born on in racism, to be honest with you. And so to make it better, we have to just keep talking about it and improving. And I love the analogy, hey, treat people the way that you want to be treated, and we'll all be happy. It would be a wonderful world.
And that's with thoughts too. It's like, how do you want people to think about you? Do they want you to, judge you ahead of time before getting to know you because of your color? Or do you want them to do what, how would you treat someone else? You want to be treated with respect, so you got a chance to know someone before they made a decision about who you were. And that's the same thing with someone else.
Yes. Got to come in with an open mind, man. Got to come in, You get in with the preconceived or, stereotyping, people, that's you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball already. Yeah, you already discriminating.
It starts in the head. It starts in the thought. It starts in you making the decision of what you want to think.
Absolutely.
And if you think, hey, we're all part of the human race. I mean, God, we're taking the place of God if we're deciding if anybody is greater than anyone else. We're immediately, it's blasphemy. All the Christians should be like, I'm wrong. That's judgment right there, and we're not, and judgment that's God's decision if we believe in God or whatever, but it's not ours to judge right or wrong. We don't know. So a lot of things to think about. We may do something else again, but thanks for your time and thanks for being here. And we'll talk more about it. But
my pleasure.
All right.
All right. Peace.
Take care.